Well, I'm curious if you've heard this one lately. I get better Wi-Fi at home than I do at the office. It sounds ridiculous, but for many employees, it's now true. You see, at home, Wi-Fi, well, it just works. One router, one network, no thinking required. The office, that's a different world. There's dozens, maybe hundreds or thousands of access points, devices constantly roaming, density that changes by the hour, security policies layered on top of everything. So keeping that network fast, stable, and secure, it's not that simple. And let's face it, many office networks haven't been all that occupied these past few years, and that's changing. More people are returning, more devices are connecting, and these networks are being pushed harder than ever. Well, this show centers on WWT's research paper, Network Priorities for 2025. And today, we're tackling Priority 4. An important question for IT leaders: is now the time to upgrade to Wi-Fi 7? Or do Wi-Fi 6 or 6E still make more sense? Well, to unpack this, I'm joined by Jennifer Huber and Mike Rice, two wireless experts who help organizations navigate these decisions every day. So upgrading isn't just about speed, it's about capacity, it's about reliability and security. In a world where networks must handle more AI-driven applications, nonstop video collaboration, and an explosion of connected devices. So what's the right move? With Wi-Fi 7 now available, should organizations leap forward, or is there still value in Wi-Fi 6 and 6E? We're going to get into that right now.
WWT presents Research.
Let's start with this, Jennifer. We've worked together before, and so this may be a repeat. But tell me, what is it you do for Worldwide Technology?
Oh, my job title is Technical Solutions Architect on the Global Engineering team. But that means that I'm here as a resource to the entire company for all of the customer base. Anytime you need somebody to come in and talk deeply about enterprise Wi-Fi, something that the field, bubbles up the opportunity, that's, Mike and I are brought in.
Gotcha. Yeah. Thanks for introducing Mike essentially there. Mike, you do a lot of the same thing as I understand it.
I do exactly the same thing, and we don't focus on any verticals or anything like that. I mean, we work across all the verticals, whether it be Global Fi or whether it be manufacturing, warehousing, pretty much anything to do with 802.11 type Wi-Fi.
Well, here's what I think is perfect, because is in the way I would word it, you guys are, because I was in this role in previous lives, but an overlay support, knowledgeable in a certain area that, a lot of times the salespeople, the direct interfaces with our customer base don't always have the depth of knowledge or the latest real-time understanding of what's happening in your niche. And it's funny, as soon as you get into your niche, you're like, it doesn't feel like a niche. It feels like a lot going on here. We seem to be in this point in time and what I feel like the paper for priorities is telling us, which this is based on, is saying, look, there's no question that there's been an effect since COVID, but many corporations are either demanding or trying to figure out what the right balance is and return back from home and into an office. But a lot of these offices have been sitting relatively unsupported and may be on old standards and not have the network infrastructure and everything. And suddenly that sets up the potential for people to come back in and go, well, I get better network at home, something growing up I never thought I'd say. But, I get better connectivity at home than I do at the office. Why would I come in here? This is not worth it, even all the lovely people I get to meet or whatever. So Wi-Fi is obviously the expectation that everybody has. And as soon as that density starts coming back, even if it's only one day a week, it's going to be felt. And I feel like Wi-Fi has been making a lot of progression towards doing this. But how would you describe the current situation with enterprise customers now in terms of their wireless deployments and happiness?
Well, the current situation is if you're going to mandate a return to work, the office environment needs to be as smooth and as easy to work with as the home environment. And that's not always the case. And if you're going to require people to come to the office and the office just, is a lackluster experience, then your people are going to be looking elsewhere for a job. That's one prong of it. The other prong of it is like we all got used to all of these video software apps, whether, there's a whole, it's like the big five, like whatever you want to pick one. When that stuff works at home and you bring all those people into the office and everybody's trying to do video bandwidth and walk around with their smartphone or whatever, their video conference on their back pocket, what have you, that is what's shining the light on wireless networks that used to like squeak by. And people would be like, oh man, this sucks. And then it would get better, but nobody really called in a ticket. Now you've got all the people that have returned to work and maybe some of them aren't happy about returning to work, they're going to call the help desk and let everybody know that they're not happy, that the Wi-Fi is problematic.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's what we're seeing.
I always love the Wi-Fi. I had a connectivity problem last week. What time was it? Where were you standing with, assuming we could even,
Yep.
go back and replay the exact conditions that were in the environment at that moment, which is better than it used to be, but
Oh, yeah.
still challenging. Mike, do you agree? How would you assess the current culture of wireless?
Yeah, I definitely agree with everything that Jennifer said. I thought we were done talking about return to work, right? I thought, we had a very short window to get these companies back up to speed, and we've been talking about return to work now for 2 years.
Yes.
And it's still the same scenario that Jennifer mentioned, which I'm kind of shocked and the industry hasn't kind of taken care of itself. But, all the changes in Wi-Fi, from Wi-Fi 6 to Wi-Fi 7 to 6 gigahertz, people have been a little reluctant, I think, to kind of make that switch or to, invest in Wi-Fi. And I think they're confused, right?
I know when I look at it, I'm always trying to figure out, well, wait, is this what's deployed? Is this what's coming up? Are these just bragging, the drag strip numbers that you'll hear about on the marketing packaging, and what's the reality? But it's going to differ based on the environment. You're nodding, Jennifer?
It's a little bit like, there's always the marketing that says that, like, the latest, greatest Wi-Fi is going to slice your bread and butter both sides. But it's different when it's in the enterprise. It's different because the enterprise APs don't have like 16 different little antennas sticking out every which way to make them look cool and fast. So,
Yeah. These things that look like they could just get up and walk right out of their room. And I go, no wonder this thing's problematic. I think it's alive. But walk us through. So I remember my last little time in Cisco is like 5 years ago. I was focused on the arrival as they were ratifying 802.11ax, which we now know is Wi-Fi 6, because I think we're starting to see it appears this way. Maybe it's just I'm not paying attention. We're actually using the Wi-Fi numbering scheme now more consistently. Is that the same way with the experts?
The whole numbering system got brought in and like made backwards compatible. Like we came in and like, okay, we're just going to name everything prior to this instead of the letters, the lowercase letters, they're going to be numbers.
Yeah, and I think that works out as long as we're differentiating between, because the biggest thing at the time was, well, wait, what is 5G from the service providers and the cellular, networks? And like, no, that's different. Don't get that 5 is not equal to this is the number before 6, two different beasts.
Yes.
Now that that's faltered a bit and at least is not marketed as heavily, we can ignore, for the sake of this discussion, we'll ignore service provider anyway. Talking about enterprise Wi-Fi. Mike, how would you walk us through the standards? With 6, we were starting to deal with density in some creative ways that I feel like have also gotten better as the standards have grown. And there's been some big changes in the available RF we can play with too, right?
Yeah, I think the biggest change is probably 6 gigahertz, obviously. And when we talk Wi-Fi 6 isn't necessarily 6 gigahertz. When 6E comes into play is when we start talking about 6 gigahertz. And that's where I think there's a game changer. Right. The additional spectrum, invaluable, right? We've always had contention on the wireless networks. This was the big thing. And I really thought that would change adoption very quickly. And it still hasn't. People are adopting it, but there's a lot of pieces and parts that, the implementation has been slowed down because people haven't adopted things like Jennifer mentioned, WPA3. Different security algorithms, for authentication and authorization and things that are required for 6 gigahertz. That slowed it down a bit, I think.
Well, is it how the 6 gigahertz is managed, because it's not the same. We have to kind of differentiate between indoor and outdoor, and also by country, right? Because
Yes.
What is it? It's managing the traffic, or because other things could potentially need the channel, and there has to be a way of kind of backing off.
It's managed more like the cellular networks manage what channel the AP chooses and how the clients behave. It's a little bit different rather than like the 2.4 and the 5, where the clients decide when they're going to roam. The 6 gigahertz like calls home, and the home office, if you will, the home office of control says that you should be on this channel and this power, and these are your clients. And it's a different way of thinking about the Wi-Fi.
Yeah, and that sounds like that's more of an interaction versus a broadcast in one direction. There's input back from the client side.
It's a conversation from the access points to the powers that be that manage, like who all in the environment has 6 gigahertz and what channels they're on. And it says this is the least used, like back in the day when you'd power up an AP and it would be like, what's going on out there? Which channel should I choose? And then choose the least congested channel. It's kind of like that.
Basically called auto frequency coordination, right? So there is incumbents in the space. It's unlicensed spectrum, but it's been used for a long time by other people. So it's a way of keeping us from interfering with the incumbents on that spectrum. The big thing to understand is really when GPS and talking back to the auto frequency coordination system comes into play. Low power indoor, things like that, don't really necessarily require AFC coordination. It's when you start getting outdoor, right, that you have to call back, or running what's called standard power indoor, which we see a lot in warehouses. Higher ceilings, more power on the access point, those types of things.
That means there's 3 radios at a minimum handling 2.45 and now 6 gigahertz, correct?
Correct.
And then when you go to Wi-Fi 7, because we added the 6 gigahertz with 6E, but you go to 7, and those radios could be running simultaneously for the same data stream, correct?
Correct.
Which is a benefit in terms of just the intelligent way it's using all the available resources, it feels like. But who wants to describe Wi-Fi 7 and what makes it interesting? And, is it something to even consider today versus a 6E or even 6?
There's a couple of things that I think when we talk speeds and feeds that really don't come into play in the enterprise yet without very specific design. And that's things like, 320 meg bandwidth, or never going to happen.
Channel. Yeah.
Yeah, the width of the channel, not going to happen in the enterprise. 4K QAM, in order to get that, you're going to have to be feet from an access point, right? Yeah. 16 by 16 MIMO, probably not going to be something that the enterprise is going to benefit from today. But we were talking about multi-link operation, and I think that's probably one of the biggest things, right? It's resiliency in the network. It's the ability for the access point to talk to the same AP on different channels, right? 2.4 and 5.
At the same. It's like
at the same time.
Yeah.
Or alternatively, right? It can be both at the same time, or it can be 5 is looking good right now, I'll talk on 5, and then 5 doesn't look so good, so let's talk on 2.4, or let's talk on 6. Downside is we can't control it. The client makes the decision when it wants to use it. From what we've seen
ruling in that.
Yeah.
So it's saying, this is how I see you, this is what I need, essentially.
Right. And if it wants to use both, it uses both. And, we can kind of force it by doing some really high throughput testing and try to force that. But it's not configurable, unfortunately, today. But still beneficial, right, from a resiliency standpoint. Now, there's a bunch of other stuff on the QoS side, I think, in Wi-Fi 7 that the enterprise is definitely going to benefit from. And those are things like, spectrum puncturing, multiple resource units, things like that. The ability for the AP to send some new elements in the tag, about applications and things like that. So I think from a QoS perspective and a resiliency perspective, Wi-Fi 7, winner.
There is a small list of Wi-Fi 7 smart devices. Intel's got a chipset. So the industry is getting there. I mean, the client device count is kind of limited right now, but that's the nature of something brand new. So as the client devices, only come in Wi-Fi 7, then it'll be a no-brainer to have your whole infrastructure ready to support them.
I personally would not let the lack of clients in the industry stop you from deploying Wi-Fi 7 today.
Yeah, 'cause it's not like the Wi-Fi 7 APs are only supporting Wi-Fi 7. It just means that you're ready. You're ahead of the curve. You're ready for them when they get to be plentiful.
Well, and this sounds like the kind of thing that we've always kind of had to advise on, right? Which is you go with a standard that's a little bit ahead of you won't see the full benefits until clients catch up. But that may be happening on a slightly different evolution in your corporate environment than the budget you now have for doing an infrastructure change. While we're talking about the infrastructure change on the AP side, I would assume that potentially running 3 radios simultaneously means the power draw is completely different, and the heat dissipation and everything that goes along with power What's important to understand here, and how does that change, say, PoE requirements and consolidation back to closet switches and such?
Well, the PoE requirements are different for each AP model. If you want to have all of the features enabled, you're going to have probably PoE 5 or 6, but each vendor has a published sheet saying what kind of functionality you get out of the access point with, class 3 or class 4, 5, or 6. Some APs can be staged in a lower power setting, and then the more power you give them, the more advanced features you can turn on.
That actually sounds like it's in line also with the same advice in terms of don't worry about waiting for clients to catch up, because we'll be to Wi-Fi 8 by that point probably, with as those things never do quite sync up. But you're also saying perhaps that the APs could be deployed even if you don't have the ideal power behind them or the ideal structure, you're still going to get some benefit, and you could also maybe stage that as a phased in change.
It's entirely possible, but you should always cross-reference what AP you're going to buy. Look at the hardware cut sheet for it, see what power it requires to power on at all.
Yeah.
And then take it from there. Look at your switching edge, power budget. Do you need to upgrade your cabling? Do you need to upgrade your switches? Do you need more power at the edge?
Different vendors allow for, sometimes configuration, right? I can turn off USB ports. I can turn off, the redundant 5 gig radio or the dual 5 gig radio, only have one.
Well, and my understanding too is that with 7, we've got some AP to AP communication happening in terms of how they mesh and how they balance. It's a bit more intelligent than it's been before. I may be not stating this correctly. So, but what I was wondering about is, are we at the point where we don't need RF experts to come out and measure our environment anymore? Can we get rid of you guys yet, or we still need you?
That's a bad idea. Some companies out there will tell you totally you can, but all of the people that work in the RF space that know a little bit better than marketing terms and marketing statements know that that's not actually something that is a good idea. Because at the foundation, you still have to look at, power output, antenna choices, mounting solutions, sources of interference that are in the environment. There's still a lot that goes on that the magic wonders of AI and what's the other one? AI and machine learning, like they're not going to fix it all right out of the gate, no matter how much the marketing team wants you to believe it.
There are some cool things here with the APs talking to each other, right? Both Aruba and Cisco and Juniper and all these companies are working on this thing. It was developed by Aruba called AP Auto Locate, right? And in a large enterprise, placing APs on maps is extremely time consuming. I can recall a couple of hospitals that, 3, 4 weeks, 5 weeks worth of time just placing APs on maps. And now the APs are able to talk to each other, whether it be via GPS or whether it be via ultra wideband, and help auto place those on the map by using some stuff, fine time measurements and things like that. Big way of the way the APs talk to each other to be able to auto locate. Pretty big deal.
So not just, what AP can hear the clients the best, but if those APs are snapped to the floor, then when you're doing location tracking, your client accuracy is going to be higher.
Okay. Yeah. So we're still in the realm of Wi-Fi 7 benefits in terms of what is made easier, right?
Yeah.
Because so far, I think our advice is, let's say if I'm on Wi-Fi 6 right now, do I need to go to 7? Or it depends on what kind of problems I assume I'm experiencing, if any, with Wi-Fi 6.
I would say if you have the budget and you have the opportunity, you're in a buying cycle, I wouldn't discredit Wi-Fi 7 APs just because it's new.
Yeah, because you're getting the additional 6 gigahertz.
Yeah.
Whether you go to 6
If
or
you had,
7, but you might as well jump straight to 7.
You could have, like I said, you could have Wi-Fi 6 and have 6 gigahertz. So there's a differentiator there, right? If you have 6 gigahertz today, I think making the jump right now to Wi-Fi 7 could be premature. If you don't have 6 gigahertz today and you're running just Wi-Fi 6, then moving to 7 or Wi-Fi 7 is definitely probably a good move.
Some of the stuff you remind me of with the location things and communication remind me of CBRS and how CBRS, for outdoor, is that still a growing area that people are exploring with private wireless, or because some of that communication is more the cellular style, or right in terms of how they communicate, which is completely different than Wi-Fi and a different management thing. But yeah, it feels like they're starting to borrow from each other as in terms of management capabilities and things. Yeah.
I think the technologies are borrowing from each other heavier now, right? Especially when it gets into like the AFC and things like that. There's obviously a lot of parallels that we're seeing between the two, but with private wireless, obviously, and Wi-Fi. So,
Oh, and that reminds me, earlier you said part of Wi-Fi 7 was a spectrum puncturing, but I know there's preamble puncturing. Are those the same thing, or is it two different? Is anything I need to be aware of there?
same thing. Unless I'm misreading what you're asking, yeah, same thing. So basically, if you have like an 80 wide channel, it doesn't necessarily mean that that entire 80 wide channel is in use. So I have the ability to utilize a part of that channel. Did I say that correct, Jeff?
Yeah. No.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so I could use a part of that channel, and it basically cuts down on potential interference and the ability of the client to use, where with other Wi-Fi,
Sessions don't have to finish completely before they can reuse. It's the efficiency of packing the bandwidth, packing the spectrum and stuff is continues to get more and more creative.
It's
Of
pretty
course, it all
crazy.
depends on your noise floor, and which, as you dutifully mentioned there at the beginning, which is, some of these numbers are based on standing next to the AP and making sure no one else is doing anything. But it's nice. I like this idea where we're not necessarily having to choose between, well, for me, it's historically been 2.4 or 5, and then granted, I have some old IoT devices that sure enough have to have 2.4, and that still is an occurrence. And of course, they have great reach. And so I like the fact that that now it sounds like I did not realize this part. You're saying that the device itself in the end will instruct the AP as far as use this part of our communication on this channel, use this on 5, use this on 2.4. So maybe some metadata is on 2.4, but this video stream is on 5 or 6. I don't know. It's smart in terms of if we're pulling this off, and it sounds like we are, because it's a ratified standard now. 7's been released, correct? Okay. Jennifer, don't give me that look. You mentioned a little bit about Aruba implementation. What is the difference in vendor implementations that may be important here to understand in terms of how they're bundled, how they're sold, advantages, disadvantages at a high level?
One of the biggest differences that I've seen is the number of PIDs, like the number of SKUs that are purchasable. Some vendors have it narrowed down to just one, meaning you can buy one AP that will work anywhere, and you don't need to buy the one that's, hard coded for Hungary or hard coded for Japan only. So I think for me, like I said, recent research is the number of SKUs, number of PIDs.
Yeah.
I know that's an odd thing to say, but that was the biggest thing that jumped out at me when I was doing the comparison.
I think some of the other things to look at across manufacturers are the additional radios that different OEMs are putting in. Some OEMs have started to implement ultra wideband radio. Others are, sticking with Zigbee from an IoT platform, multiple BLE radios versus a single BLE radio, USB port availability. Do I have an option to add in other radios based on USB port functionality? Can I containerize applications on the access point? Way far and above, Wi-Fi 7, but looking at the AP as more of a platform. And what else can I do with the AP?
Which also sounds like there might be room for some consolidation if people are running separate IoT networks with separate radios and separate management interfaces. There's at least the chance to look at saying, could I consolidate a few of these things and reduce the number of devices I'm trying to keep up with?
We all hate overlays, right? No reason to overlay if you can do it on what you have, right? It's just, that's the goal, I think, right? Is to get rid of overlays and get rid of multiple OEMs and multiple management interfaces and management platforms and things like that.
Well, and I like that. How are the vendors and how's the industry doing in general in terms of giving us tools for troubleshooting Wi-Fi these days and understanding what's happening in our environment in a way that can make sense to maybe someone that doesn't have your depth of expertise?
Or seeing vendors that they've already done acquisitions of sensor-based companies to do synthetic client testing, to do software-based client simulation, having devices that you can have at the level where the client is. So not necessarily having all your testing coming from the AP and the ceiling, where the signal strength is going to look different, but having things that can be interspersed in your environment physically at a client level, client
A
height.
bit more reality to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think some of the other things there are definitely, I hate to keep saying AI, but AI has come a really long way, right? The ability to go back in time and find a problem, go back in 7 days prior, so and so was in the executive conference room and couldn't authenticate, and they reported it 3 days later, and you can't duplicate the problem, right? Being able to time travel, being able to do automated packet captures based on an anomaly, and it just happened all together. Being able to, look through the stack, not just, be able to look at the client, being able to look over the air, being able to look at the access point, being able to look at the switch, being able to look at DNS, DHCP, all of those things that could go wrong. I mean, AI is identifying this stuff in a single view. Very quick, very easy. Wish they had it when I was working in the field troubleshooting wireless networks. But yeah, it makes it a lot easier these days for sure.
Yeah. The strong language capabilities right off the bat, I was enjoying that as a writer and do a lot of writing with this, and just the ability to manipulate large amounts of text and see those patterns quickly,
Yes.
which is what we're all trying to do with humans, staring at logs. And I'm like, the ability to, even if it's completely separate, that as we've all played with this, I'm sure, where you can dump massive amount of just logs in and say, and then start asking questions in very simple language. And so we're seeing that happen in the management interfaces at a basic level. And of course, with much more sensitivity to how that data is shared and where it goes. And obviously this remains as part of the management side. At a high level, how would you subdivide customers to kind of say, if you see yourself in this area, these are the things you should be thinking of? And are there any edge cases or, interactions you've seen that have taught you to say, oh, hey, in healthcare, try this, but not this? I don't know, whatever it may be.
Well, healthcare definitely lends itself to location tracking. It's huge in healthcare and retail. So we have workshops and briefings that we can schedule with our customers. All of those workshops and briefings are highly tailored and customized to the use cases that the customer comes to us with questions about. So we have that capability. We have hands-on lab environments. We've got white papers, blogs, video content, a plethora of data on wwt.com. And to get access to it, you just need to use your corporate email address and log or sign up and create a profile, and you can get stick time, as they say.
Well, and I like that because it's funny is making what I call my trip to Mecca, which is going to the Advanced Technology Center. And because you can go every couple of years, and you could go every month probably and see something completely different the way it changes now. But I love how much you guys have invested in making sure everything is remotely accessible for running these labs, many of which are free, and even reaching into proof of concept, perhaps, if you've started doing multi-vendor testing and such with people, because that becomes so important to do that if they don't already have that replicated in their environment, and so many people don't. But Mike, in terms of decision-making guidance and what are you telling clients at this stage to look at in terms of what they should be thinking about?
I hate to say, but it depends, right? A lot of it's vertical related, a lot of it's budget related, a lot of it's what you have today. A lot of it was your stuff really designed properly in the first place? Or do you need to go back to basics? We're seeing networks that were designed really well for 5 gig, that easy transition, very little change in design, unless there's a very specific use case, that requires more speeds and feeds and stuff like that. So a little bit of analysis up front on what their Wi-Fi network looks like today, just from a base RF site survey perspective, right? Can they meet the requirements?
Yeah.
I hate to see somebody go out and buy, 1,000 new Wi-Fi 7 APs and then find out that, well, it's not, I didn't get any benefit, right? So it really is a back to basics conversation, I think, a little at this point.
Well, you're reminding me too of just, do you have some kind of established baseline, which I'm sure you guys can help establish, because how do you know if you've improved? Because most often, at least with me anyway, it's anecdotal. It's like, I think there's less complaints.
Yeah.
People aren't yelling at me in the hallway, or whatever, at the water cooler. But I assume that one simple phone call, someone could probably reach out to you guys and commission a visit that just says, can you tell me kind of what the current situation is? And if I need to be investing anything, which could be nothing, right? You could be saying, no, I think you're fine as long as you're, these applications and these employees of this kind of traffic. I think you're okay. No need to spend any money on this. Let's revisit it next year. Or, oh my gosh, you're setting yourself up for some potential embarrassments with your workforce as everybody starts flooding back in. Or flooding is probably not the right word. Trickling back in, whatever it may be. A lot of people trickling in and out these days. What did I forget to ask you? What do you think is important here?
So I just want to reiterate that if you haven't created a profile on WWT.com, there's no reason not to. Go see what we've got out there to compare vendors, get hands-on with multiple vendor and lab environments. I mean, there isn't anything like it out there because each OEM is only going to present their OEM solution. They don't have the ability to integrate multiple partners into the solution. So
yeah.
It's a unique opportunity. And if you're not taking advantage of it, get out there and take advantage of it.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. It's been my pleasure to be here.
And Mike, I recall that we met in Las Vegas almost 2 years ago, maybe a year and a half ago, I guess it would be at this point. But thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you very much. It was a good time.
Absolutely. Learned a lot from both of you.
Well, earlier we asked the big question. With Wi-Fi 7 now available, is it time to upgrade or do Wi-Fi 6 and 6E still make more sense? And of course, the answer that we hear all too often, it depends.
Okay.
But this time, it's not just a safe answer. It really is the truth. I mean, the right move depends on your network, your users, and the reality of your workplace today. Because let's face it, I mean, office networks have had a bit of a break these past few years, but that's over. Workplaces are filling up again. Wi-Fi demands are rising, and networks that once got by are now struggling under the weight of AI-powered apps, constant video calls, and a flood of connected devices. So where does that leave you? This show is about shining a light on the big questions, but the real value comes when you apply these insights to your own network. Every environment is different. The smartest next step is bringing your specific challenges and goals into the conversation. That's where Worldwide Technology comes in. They've built a real-world testing environment where businesses can compare vendors, run proof of concept testing, and work directly with experts to map the right path forward, your path forward. So if you haven't explored it yet, now's the time. Visit WWT.com, create a profile, and start working with the people who can help you make the right call. Big thanks to Jennifer Huber and Mike Rice for sharing their insights today. I'm Rob Boyd. Thanks for watching WWT Presents Research. We'll see you next time.
Ericsson's enterprise wireless solutions enable organizations to innovate, operate, and grow anywhere without constraints. Ericsson NetCloud, Cradlepoint routers, and enterprise 5G solutions provide the flexibility of public and private 5G with the zero trust security of simplified SASE.